Picture this: the faint hum of a refrigerator in the background, a sound so constant it's almost invisible, until you realize it's the only thing breaking the stillness of a house that's held the same breath for decades. I'm Erica, 67 years old, and this is my world. A small suburban home on a street where every lawn looks the same. Every mailbox tilts just a little to the left. My days are a quiet rhythm, a metronome of mundane tasks. Folding laundry that smells of the same detergent I've used for 30 years. Watering the geraniums on the porch. Watching the shadows stretch across the yard as the sun dips low. It's not a bad life, just a predictable one. Like a song you've heard so many times you don't even notice the melody anymore. I've been married to Matthew for 32 years. That's a long time to share a space, to know the creak of his footsteps on the stairs, the way he clears his throat before he speaks, even if he doesn't speak much these days. I love him, I do. But it's the kind of love that's settled into the cracks of routine, a resigned affection that keeps us tethered more out of habit than passion. Our evenings are a ritual. We sit at the kitchen table, the same oak one we bought when we first moved in, its surface scratched from years of hurried meals. Dinner is simple, maybe meatloaf or casserole, something I can make without thinking. We eat with minimal conversation, the clink of forks against plates louder than any words. Afterward, we migrate to the living room, to our old TV that flickers at the edges of the screen. Matthew sprawls on the couch, his long legs stretched out, his hands folded over his belly. I curl up beside him, close enough to feel the warmth of him, but far enough that the silence between us feels like a third presence in the room, heavier than anything we could say. The faded floral curtains hang limp at the windows. The sagging couch groans under our weight, and the air smells faintly of dust and the lemon cleaner I use on the coffee table. This is our life. Comfortable but uninspired. A canvas painted in muted tones. We never had children to fill the empty spaces, so it's just us, and the hum of familiarity that wraps around us like a worn blanket. Matthew is a kind man, though distant in his own way. He retired a few years back from his job as a mechanic, and now he spends his time tinkering in the garage, surrounded by tools and the faint scent of motor oil. Sometimes I catch him dozing off in his recliner out there, a wrench still in his hand, as if sleep snuck up on him mid-thought. He's content, I think. Or at least he seems to be, though we don't talk about it. We don't talk about much, really. But then, a few days ago, something shifted in our quiet little world. Ryan showed up. Ryan, Matthew's old friend from way back. Someone I'd heard about in passing over the years but never met until now. The moment he walked through our front door, dragging a beat-up duffel bag behind him, it was like a gust of wind blew through the house, stirring up dust I didn't even know had settled. Ryan's got this energy about him, a kind of restless charm that fills a room without even trying. He's staying with us for a while, just until he gets back on his feet, and I can already tell these past few days have been anything but ordinary. It started that first night after he arrived. We were all in the living room, the TV muted in the background, its blue glow flickering across the walls. The coffee table was cluttered with empty beer cans, the cheap kind Matthew always buys, and a single lamp cast a warm golden light over us, stretching long shadows across the worn carpet. Ryan was sprawled in the armchair, one leg slung over the side, a grin on his face as he launched into a story about their teenage years. I was sitting off to the side, my knitting needles clicking softly in my lap, pretending to focus on the scarf I've been working on for weeks. But I couldn't help but listen as Ryan brought up a high school prank, something about a stolen street sign and a late-night escapade that nearly got them caught. He leaned forward, his voice animated, teasing Matthew with a playful jab. "Come on, man, you remember how you almost tripped over that curb running from Old Man Jenkins? Thought we were done for." Matthew, who'd been half dozing on the couch, let out a rare, genuine chuckle, shaking his head as if he could still see the whole scene playing out. Yeah, laugh it up," he muttered, but there was a spark in his eyes I hadn't seen in ages. I couldn't help but laugh, too, even though I didn't know the full story. There was something infectious about the way they bantered, like I was catching a glimpse of a younger Matthew, someone I'd only ever known through faded photographs and half-told tales. Ryan's laughter echoed through the house, loud and unapologetic, and for the first time in a long while, our little living room felt alive. Night after night it's been like this, late conversations over those same cheap beers, stories that tumble out one after another, each one sillier or more daring than the last. I found myself drawn into their orbit, setting aside my knitting or the book I pretend to read, just to soak in the sound of their voices, the easy rhythm of their friendship. I don't always get the inside jokes, but I laugh anyway, feeling lighter than I have in years. There's something else, though, something I've noticed in the quiet moments. Sometimes when Ryan thinks I'm not paying attention, his eyes linger on me. It's just a fleeting glance, a quick flicker before he looks away, but I can't shake the feeling that there's something behind it, something unspoken that makes my stomach twist in a way I haven't felt in years. I've tried to brush it off, telling myself I'm imagining things, that I'm too old for silly notions like that. But a few nights ago everything changed, and I can't pretend anymore that this house, this life, is the same as it was before Ryan arrived. It was late, past 10 p.m., a few days into his stay. The three of us were in the living room after dinner, the remnants of a simple meal of baked chicken and mashed potatoes still sitting on the kitchen counter, the faint smell of garlic lingering in the air. The room was cloaked in darkness, save for the eerie blue glow of the TV casting long, wavering shadows across the walls. An old black-and-white movie played, the kind with dramatic music and overacted dialogue, but the sound was turned down low, just a murmur of voices and violins. The faded floral curtains were drawn tight, shutting out the world beyond, and the only other light came from a small crack under the kitchen door, a sliver of yellow that barely reached us. Matthew was on the couch, wrapped in that worn plaid blanket he's had forever, the one with frayed edges and a faint, musty smell. His head was tilted back against the cushion, his mouth slightly open, soft snores rumbling from his chest like a distant engine. He looked so peaceful, so unaware, his face softened by sleep in a way it rarely is when he's awake. I was sitting in the armchair across from him, the old leather creaking under me every time I shifted. I held a glass of water in my hand, the condensation cool against my palm, tiny droplets sliding down the side and pooling on the armrest. Ryan was perched on the ottoman beside me, closer than he'd been on other nights, his knee just inches from mine. I could feel the heat of him, a subtle warmth that seemed to cut through the chill of the room. We'd been talking for a while, nothing heavy at first, just idle chatter about the movie, how the actress on screen reminded me of someone I knew back in high school, and Ryan laughing softly, saying he could see it. Then we drifted to old memories, bits and pieces of the past that felt safe to revisit. But eventually, the conversation tapered off, leaving a heavy silence in its wake, the kind that feels like it's waiting for something to break it. I remember staring at the TV, not really seeing it, when I felt the lightest brush against my knee. It was so subtle at first I thought I'd imagined it, just a fleeting touch through the thin fabric of my slacks. But then it lingered, Ryan's hand resting there, his fingers pressing just enough to make it clear it wasn't an accident. My breath caught in my throat, sharp and sudden, like I'd swallowed something cold. I glanced over at Matthew, still lost in his dreams, his snores unbroken, his face untouched by the tension that was suddenly coiling tight in my chest. My heart started pounding, a wild, erratic rhythm I could feel in my ears, and I froze, my fingers tightening around the glass so hard I thought it might crack. I didn't pull away, though. I couldn't. Or maybe I didn't want to. I don't know. Ryan shifted closer, his presence overwhelming now. The faint scent of his cologne, something earthy and sharp, mixing with the stale air of the room. Then he leaned in, his breath warm against my ear, his voice dropping to a whisper so low it was almost a growl. "Your husband's right there. That's what excites you, isn't it?" Those words hit me like a shockwave, sending a shiver racing down my spine. A mix of raw shock and something else. Something darker I couldn't, or wouldn't, name. My mind screamed at me to move, to push him away, to wake Matthew up and shatter this moment before it went any further. But my body didn't listen. I sat there, rooted to the chair, as his lips grazed the side of my neck, soft and deliberate. The next morning, I'm up before the sun even has a chance to peek through the curtains, my body restless, my mind a tangled mess of thoughts I can't unravel. The house is quiet, save for the faint drip of the kitchen faucet I've been meaning to fix for months. I shuffle to the counter, my slippers scuffing against the linoleum, and start the coffee maker. The rich, bitter aroma fills the air, curling around me like a familiar comfort, but it does little to ease the storm brewing inside. I grab a sponge and start washing the dishes from last night, the clink of porcelain against porcelain sharp in the stillness, each sound a tiny jolt to my already frayed nerves. I scrub harder than I need to, trying to focus on the suds, the warm water, anything to anchor myself to this mundane task. But my mind keeps slipping back to last night, to the heat of Ryan's breath on my neck, the weight of his words, the way my heart raced with a mix of dread and something I'm ashamed to admit felt like exhilaration. I can't stop seeing it, feeling it over and over, like a loop I can't escape. Matthew shuffles into the kitchen, his hair mussed from sleep, his old flannel robe tied loosely around his waist. He plops down at the table with the morning newspaper, the pages rustling as he unfolds it, completely oblivious to the chaos churning in me. "Morning, hun," he mumbles, barely looking up. "Think we need more milk? I'm almost out for my cereal." His voice is so casual, so normal, it almost hurts to hear it. I force a smile, though he doesn't see it, and mutter a quick, "I'll check the fridge," as I turn back to the sink. My hands tremble as I rinse a plate, the water sloshing more than it should, and I grip the edge of the counter to steady myself. How can he not sense it? How can he not see the guilt written all over me, like it's etched into my skin? Then Ryan walks in, all easy confidence, like nothing in the world could touch him. He's wearing a faded t-shirt and jeans, his hair still damp from a shower, and he flashes a grin as he grabs a mug from the cabinet. "Smells good in here, Erica," he says, his tone light, teasing, as if we're just old pals sharing a morning routine. He slaps Matthew on the back, a little too hard, and laughs. "Hey, man, what do you say we hit the lake today? Get some fishing in before the weather turns? I've got a good feeling about the bass." Matthew grunts in agreement, folding the paper down to look at him, a small smile tugging at his lips. Yeah, could be fun. Been a while since I've cast a line. They start planning, tossing around ideas about bait in the best spot by the pier, their voices blending into a background hum as I stand there, pouring coffee with hands that won't stop shaking. The dark liquid spills over the edge of a mug, just a little, and I curse under my breath, wiping it up with a dish towel, hoping no one notices. But Ryan does. I catch his eye for a split second as I set the mugs on the table. And there it is, that smirk, small and knowing, curling at the corner of his mouth. It's gone as fast as it appeared, but it's enough to make my stomach twist tighter, a knot of nerves and something else I don't want to name. I turn away quickly, busying myself with wiping down the counter, but I can feel his gaze lingering, like a weight I can't shake off. Every move I make feels exaggerated, too loud, too obvious. The clatter of the sugar spoon against the jar, the soft thud of my footsteps as I move to the fridge, it's all amplified in my head, like I'm under a spotlight I can't escape. I keep waiting for Matthew to look up, to narrow his eyes and ask what's wrong, but he just sips his coffee, lost in whatever article he's reading. Here I am again, a couple of nights after that moment that's been replaying in my head like a broken record. It's late, well past the hour when the world outside our little house has gone quiet, save for the occasional chirp of a cricket or the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. The living room feels like a stage set for a play I don't want to be in, but can't seem to walk away from. The TV is on, flickering with some late-night infomercial, the sound turned down to a whisper, casting ghostly shadows across the walls. The faded floral curtains are drawn tight, just like before, shutting out the moonlight and trapping us in this dim, suffocating space. The air is thick with the same dusty stillness, mixed with the faint scent of the lemon cleaner I wiped over the coffee table earlier today. Matthew is sprawled on the couch, his head tilted back against the cushion, that old plaid blanket draped over his legs. His soft snores rumble through the room, steady and oblivious, a sound that's both a comfort and a weight pressing down on my chest. He's so peaceful, so unaware of the storm raging inside me, and I can't help but stare at him for a moment, wondering how we got here, how I got here. I'm sitting in the armchair again, the leather creaking under me with every tiny shift of my weight. My hands are folded in my lap, fingers twisting together nervously, like they're trying to hold on to something I can't quite grasp. Ryan is close, too close, perched on the ottoman just like that other night, his knee brushing against the edge of my chair. I can feel the heat radiating from him, a pull I'm fighting with every ounce of willpower I have left. My heart is already racing, a frantic drumbeat I can't silence, and I keep my eyes fixed on the TV screen, pretending to watch whatever's playing, though I couldn't tell you what it is if my life depended on it. The tension in the room is a living thing, coiling tighter with every second that ticks by, and I know he feels it too. I can sense it in the way he's sitting, the way his gaze keeps drifting to me, even though I refuse to meet it. Then it happens. He leans in, slow and deliberate, his hand reaching for mine. His fingers brush against my knuckles, rough and warm, and it's like a jolt of electricity shoots through me, sharp and undeniable. I yank my hand back, the movement jerky and too quick, my breath hitching in my throat. My voice comes out in a shaky whisper, barely audible over the hum of the TV. We can't do this again. I mean it, or at least I want to mean it, but the words feel hollow, like they're made of glass, ready to shatter under the slightest pressure. I risk a glance at him, and there it is, that glint in his eyes, a challenge wrapped in something darker, something that makes my stomach twist in ways I don't want to admit. He leans closer, his voice low and taunting, a murmur that sends a shiver down my spine. "You liked it. Don't pretend you didn't." Those words hit me like a punch, stealing the air from my lungs. I want to snap back, to tell him he's wrong, to push him away and storm out of this room. But I can't, because deep down, buried beneath layers of guilt and shame, there's a part of me that knows he's right. That part of me remembers the thrill, the rush of adrenaline that coursed through me that night, the way it made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years, decades even. I hate that part of me, but it's there, clawing at the edges of my resolve, whispering that maybe, just maybe, I want to feel that again. My mind is a battlefield, torn between the vows I made to Matthew all those years ago and this dangerous, reckless pull that's threatening to unravel everything I've built. I'm so lost in the chaos of my thoughts that I almost miss it when Matthew stirs on the couch. The morning after that tense, unbearable night, I wake to a world that feels heavier, as if the very air in the house has thickened with the weight of my choices. Sunlight creeps through the gaps in the bedroom curtains, casting thin, golden stripes across the hardwood floor. And I lie there for a moment, listening to the distant chirp of birds outside. My chest feels tight, like I've been holding my breath for hours, and I can't shake the memory of Ryan's taunting whisper, the way it burrowed under my skin and stayed there. Today is the day he's leaving, though, and maybe with him gone, I can start to piece myself back together, or at least pretend to. I roll out of bed, my joints stiff and protesting, and pull on my robe, the familiar softness of the fabric doing little to comfort me as I shuffle toward the kitchen. Downstairs, the house is already stirring. I hear the faint clatter of a suitcase being zipped, the low murmur of voices drifting from the hallway. When I step into the living room, I see Ryan by the front door, his beat-up duffel bag slung over one shoulder, a smaller backpack at his feet. He's dressed in a worn jacket, the kind that looks like it's seen too many miles, and his hair is mussed, like he didn't bother to comb it after rolling out of the guest bed. Matthew is there too, standing with his hands in the pockets of his old jeans, his posture relaxed, but his face carrying that quiet, unreadable expression I've come to know so well. I hover near the doorway, my arms crossed over my chest, feeling like an outsider in my own home. I can't bring myself to look at Ryan directly, so I focus on the scuffed floorboards instead, tracing the familiar scratches with my eyes, as if they hold some kind of answer. Matthew steps forward, extending a hand to Ryan with a small, genuine smile. "Thanks for stopping by, man. It's been good catching up after all these years. Safe travels, all right?" His voice is warm, steady, the kind of tone that reminds me why I fell for him all those decades ago. Ryan takes his hand, shaking it firmly, and lets out a short, easy laugh. "Yeah, appreciate the hospitality. You take care, Matt. Don't be a stranger." Their exchange is so normal, so devoid of the undercurrent that's been choking me for days that it almost feels surreal. I stand there, rooted to the spot, my throat tight as I wait for this moment to pass, for the door to close and take all this tension with it. As Ryan turns to leave, he moves past me, his shoulder brushing mine just slightly. And in that fleeting second, I feel something press into my palm. It's subtle, quick, a motion so discreet I doubt Matthew even notices as he's already turning back toward the kitchen, muttering something about needing another cup of coffee. I glance down at my hand, my fingers curling instinctively around the small scrap of paper Ryan slipped me. My heart stumbles, a quick, uneven beat, as I realize what it is. I don't unfold it, not yet. I can't. Not with Matthew just a few steps away, not with the weight of everything still pressing down on me. But I know what's on it. A phone number, scrawled in a hurried hand, a silent invitation, or maybe a challenge. I shove it into the pocket of my robe, my fingers trembling just enough that I have to clench them into a fist to stop the shaking. I don't know what I'll do with it. I don't even want to think about it right now. The door clicks shut behind Ryan, the sound sharp and final in the quiet morning air, and I'm left standing there, feeling the ghost of his presence linger like a shadow I can't step out of. I spend the rest of the day moving through the house like a ghost myself, going through the motions of chores I've done 1,000 times before. I dust the shelves in the living room, the cloth gliding over the same old knickknacks, a ceramic bird Matthew bought me on our 10th anniversary, a framed photo of us on our honeymoon, and a small seashell we found together on a beach, each item whispering memories that fill the silence with echoes of a life once shared. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.